Welcome to the debate. If you saw government infrastructure spending collapse by nearly 60% and total machinery orders drop 8.9%, you'd probably think the Japanese industrial market was in free fall.
Right. It certainly looks that way on paper.
Exactly. But what if that drop isn't a crisis? What if it's actually a planned demolition to build a highly automated modern supply chain? I'm looking at the January 2026 Japan industrial machinery data. And while domestic demand is down 12.3%, I argue this represents a definitive structural transition toward private non-manufacturing demand. You, however, read this as a standard cyclical correction.
I do, yeah, because when core manufacturing orders contract by 12.1%, that is a classic cyclical CAPEX pause. I mean, you can't just brush past the massive declines in heavy, capital-intensive sectors. Tank orders plummeted 74.4%.
Which is a huge number, yeah.
Right, and plastic machinery dropped 54.2%. Companies aren't deliberately evolving here. They are hesitating. They're preserving liquidity and, pausing capital deployment because the macroeconomic environment is just uncertain.
Well, hold on. You can't just dismiss the broader context as mere corporate hesitation. That headline contraction is largely a statistical mirage.
A mirage? How so?
Because government demand collapsed by 55.5%. Public sector infrastructure spending is falling away, sure, but look at where the capital is actually flowing. Non-manufacturing sectors surged by 30.5%. We are watching a permanent pivot from state-funded legacy infrastructure to private sector technological modernization.
While I don't disagree that the 30.5% growth is happening, but we have to look at the mechanics of what is actually growing and what is shrinking. If we look at the foundational elements of heavy industry, engineering, procurement, and construction, or EPC, we're seeing severe contractions.
Right.
Blowers are down 27%. Metal processing equipment dropped nearly 3%. Think of EPC as the skeleton of heavy industry. If that skeletal infrastructure is deteriorating, the localized growth you're pointing to is entirely superficial.
I see your point, but that localized growth isn't random. It is highly targeted. Conveying machinery is up 32.7%.
Yeah, but...
And compressors grew 13.2%. Just let me finish this thought. If EPC and metal processing are the skeleton, automated logistics and conveying systems are the nervous system of the modern supply chain.
Okay, fair analogy.
All right, so the reason tank orders cratered 74% isn't just fear. Companies are moving away from storing massive amounts of raw materials, and instead they're investing heavily in moving them faster and more efficiently. That sustained investment in logistics tech is, empirical proof of permanent supply chain restructuring.
You can upgrade the nervous system, the logistics and conveyors, all you want. But if the skeleton, the foundational metal processing and EPC infrastructure, is shrinking, that body can't actually move anything substantial. And here's the other reality. If domestic heavy CAPEX is pausing, we have to look to external demand to pick up the slack. And it isn't. External demand contracted by 1.9%.
It's a slight contraction, though.
Sure, but more importantly, look at the risk profile. Roughly 60% of that export demand is heavily dependent on the Asian market. That geographic concentration proves global buyers are operating on cyclical macroeconomic timelines, not driving some structural renaissance.
I have to push back there, because treating external demand as one monolithic entity misses the underlying mechanisms at play. Broad industrial procurement might be softening, but targeted external demand is absolutely booming.
In specific sectors, maybe.
Yes, exactly. Chemical machinery exports grew by 54.9%. Plastics exports saw a 49% increase. That tells me global buyers are aggressively sourcing highly specialized, high-margin Japanese technology. They aren't pausing, they are becoming surgical with their capital.
It's a fair point on this specialized sourcing, but relying on niche technological exports to offset structural declines in baseline manufacturing equipment is a high-risk strategic posture. Niche markets are volatile, the foundational heavy manufacturing base remains highly cyclical and completely exposed to Asian macroeconomic fluctuations.
So it really comes down to this. I'm seeing the data as a structural shift toward non-manufacturing and private sector logistics automation. And you're reading it as cyclical hesitation tied to Asian macroeconomic stability.
Precisely. And for procurement teams and global buyers listening, this translates to immediate strategic actions.
Right, the actionable insights.
Exactly. If you're sourcing from Japan, you need to anticipate tighter capacity and potential lead time extensions in conveying and compressor machinery right now.
On the flip side, procurement teams might actually find significant pricing leverage in those heavy equipment categories, like tanks and metal processing. With domestic demand softening, manufacturers are going to be eager to utilize their idle capacity.
Absolutely. The true trajectory of Japanese industrial output will become much clearer in the coming quarters, especially once we see the downstream impacts on the marine and energy sectors in Q2.
We'll be watching those EPC numbers closely. Until then, you'll have to decide for yourself whether you're looking at a crumbling industrial foundation or the scaffolding of a modernized supply chain.